bát chứ. Nào, phần lên phần lại. Bát rồi đúng không? Tôi rước một tí là bát đúng không?
Cái dây buộc tóc của người ta. Nóng rồi.
Tôi uống sữa à?
Cho em chuyển khỏi chị em quay lên với chị này.
Đây.
Chị em xin
Chị cũng lương. Cắt cái ra nó luôn nha. Uống nha. Chị của chị để ở trên nhóm có ở nhỏ được.
Mình mất hôm qua chưa nót cái đấy. Ủa, chung mình đâu rồi đó?
Dưới ấy. Không được chị gửi cho. Đấy, em biết được luôn nào không đây? Đi. Trận bún không? Hả? Trận bún không?
Em chuyển khoản cái chị cũng được.
Mua nhiều không?
Đúng à? Mỗi người ăn có bát con là đủ rồi. Không một đủ bút.
Trường Sinh đi chưa đây? Rồi, đi rồi em ơi, em chụp lên lấy đi, về đến đây rồi này. Năm hộp này là của ai? Năm hộp của không hộp ai? Không hộp ai?
Mai còn 90 cân.
Ngày mai còn 90 cân anh.
Hội mà hôm nay ngày hội con trai mà.
Phát nào phát đấy luôn.
Mỗi tội đường tay trái thôi.
Tay trái cũng được, tay chiêu là nhất rồi còn gì nữa.
Tay trái thôi nhưng để con trai thôi. Tay trái nhưng để con trai đấy. Ai ăn đòn quay ở đây về lấy vợ lấy chồng về để con trai đầu lòng.
Để sinh 3 sinh 4.
Tay chị đừng móc vào để chặt. Cộp.
Ai ăn đòn quay ở đây là 1 sinh đôi, 2 toàn để con trai.
Tùng nó là đầu đuôi mà.
Em lấy cái đầu của anh cho cái đuôi. Cái đầu này hôm nay em mua về biết giống đấy, đi đâu cũng gặp vàng gặp vàng. Cái móng nó dài à?
Hô, nặng nha.
Nặng quân nhá. Nặng cùng đi vô. Cái bì nó giòn lắm, dao còn cùn được thôi.
đằng sau đây, sang hướng bên này đi.
Đã dọn nó mới vỡ, nó có cái nó còn thấy nặng tàn nhất thì nó mọc được. Hạ cánh an toàn. Hey, hey, hey. Nhìn thèm thế. Con lấy mấy đa chỉ nữa nhà chỉ.
Em thô. Em nhiều lắm.
8 cái chỉ. Mấy con lộc chỉ. Đây, chiếc dân. Đấy, khách VIP người ta phải cho chỗ ngon nhất. To với không cần cân với. Lắm ấy. Bây giờ mới lên trang trí hết mỡ. Không biết làm bánh xèo. Hai ba. Tình con gái con cháu nhà mình cả lâu.
Rồi, ok.
Không lấy tiền đâu, lấy tình cảm được rồi. Người kém 9.000 con ai ăn
Nó vừa ngon vừa ngọt.
đây đây chắc là phải thêm ngon nữa nào mật khẩu ám bơi ăn con nào chứ nó lẩy với tưởng sen nữa
Ngon nữa.
From mole, ground with a traditional tool in Mexico, to metal art forged with ancient wax casting techniques in India, and shea butter made by women artisans in Ghana. We got an inside look at businesses around the globe to see how their centuries-old traditions are still standing. This is camel skin. It takes at least 2 days to manually clean it, so it can be turned into pieces of art like this lamp. This century-old craft is a signature trade in the ancient city of Multan in Pakistan. And this is one of the last businesses that still make them. Malik Abdul Rahman Nakash is proud to keep it going.
ये फन मुझे विरसे में मिला है ये नहीं ये हमारे सीना बसीना सिलसिला है जो ख़ानदान में चला आ रहा है
In fact, his grandfather started making camel skin lamps in the early 20th century and is credited for turning it into a major business for this city. But younger generations aren't interested in learning the craft, and businesses have been closing. So, what does it take to make these lamps, and how is this craft still standing? Cleaning and preparing the hides properly is crucial. It takes hours of manual work using only this knife called rambi.
हमारे काम इसलिए आती है इसके अंदर चिकनाई कम होती है इसकी थिकनेस जो है वो काफ़ी मोटी होती है जिससे हमारे पीसेस ज़्यादा निकलते हैं
These skills are passed down within families. Ashfaq Riaz learned it from his father Muhammad when he was 7 Nowadays, they work side by side. While one cleans the hides until they're bleached white, the other scrapes the excess until it's nearly paper thin.
ये हमें फ़ख्र महसूस होता है क्योंकि ये आर्ट है और एक ये फ़न है जो पूरी दुनिया में कहीं नहीं होता। ये हम ही जानते हैं, ये हमारा ही ख़ानदान का काम हो रहा है, इसलिए करते हैं।
They save as much excess skin as they can.
चमड़े की सिलाई करने के बाद जब छोटे छोटे पीसेस बच जाते हैं चमड़े के, उसको हम ये कीमे वाली मशीन में निकालते हैं 5 दफ़ा।
Then it's time to shape the lamps. Mohammed places the thin layers over these clay molds. Today, he's working with a classic lamp shape. He uses the grinded excess to cover holes. It's important to keep the top layer thin so light can pass through the final product. He gets these molds from a potter who makes them by hand using plastic. And they come in all shapes and sizes. Mohammed seals the piece with a mixture made of glue and washing soda and leaves it to dry in the sun for up to 4 days.
उसको होने के बाद ये इस तरह की जिनके कलर इसका ये येलो कलर का हो जाता है फिर सूखने के बाद, उसके बाद हम इसको फिर जो है ना इसको मिट्टी निकालने के लिए हम इसको तोड़ते हैं।
Finally, it's time to paint it. It takes around 10 days to finish a single lamp. And Malik has to be precise and patient, since one mistake can ruin the entire design.
कलर स्कीम, डिज़ाइन की वंड, और आप इसमें देखें कि जो नक्काशी हमने ख़ास तौर पे इलाकाई नक्काशी को हमने ज़िंदा रखना होता है जो श्रीनगर से चली आ रही है। उसमें यहाँ के मुल्तान के फूल हो गए, मुल्तान की सब्जियाँ हो गई, ये हमारे पैटर्न का ख़ास हिस्सा है।
This technique is called nakashi, and it's over 900 years old. Artists from Multan painted designs like these on buildings, monuments, and mosques. Malik learned the technique from his father.
ये उन्हीं की मेहनत है जो आज मैं काम इतना अच्छा
Theo nó làm cái gì nhỉ?
Ăn
Cô làm một cái bún này.
làm như nó ăn một mình không bảo đấy.
Ấy tự ăn mình được.
Em với chị Thành vừa xuống ăn rồi.
And it's not as easy to lose weight anymore. That's why I teamed up with the experts at Nutrisystem to help create their newest plans, specifically designed for women.
Dễ thương mẹ.
55 and up. Introducing Complete 55, weight loss made for women by women.
Get protein-powered meals including hearty inspirations meals that control hunger for up to 5 hours. Click now to get today's special offer.
Móc mẻ đấy nha. Doesn't have
Em đã sản xuất lớp phổi mát mẻ để đi làm.
It's totally easy. You pick a state, you fill out your information, you give your business a name, and you're done. There's no paperwork, no bureaucracy, no headaches. Yeah, that taken care of. I was able to set up everything else I needed for my new business. A unique logo, personalized website, branded digital business card, business domain, and professional email address all in one centralized place. Now, my business is protected, my personal assets are secured, and I look super professional to my clients. Let's listen to some reviews.
It's going to be able to take your business from one level to the next without any
It
can make things so much easier. Get you to focus on doing what you love.
There are literally no more excuses. So head to Taylor Brands and launch your business today.
farmer and his land. It has been a very successful model of e-auction that we have tried.
Muzamil says saffron that would normally sell for $1,300 in the open market can sell for $3,000 through the center.
It is 2.5 times what they used to get. Then they have a channel. They don't have any middleman. They just grow it and then sell it off and go back to their homes with their money.
Suhail said the center has been a success and works with 35% of Kashmir's saffron farmers, or about 6,000 families.
We are doing good. I'm damn sure we are building on their trust. We are giving them economic stability. We are giving them better value of their produce.
But not everyone's convinced. Ashik said he doesn't trust giving his crop to a center. The industry's woes have driven some farmers in Kashmir to leave the saffron business altogether.
काम को छोड़ के दूसरे काम को पकड़ना पड़ा है.
6,000 families have left the saffron industry. Reports say many have shifted to apple and almond growing.
हम उस चीज़ से बाहर आएंगे, ठीक है ना? तब जाके हम यही कह रहे हैं कि हमारा इंटरेस्ट जो है इस चीज़ से खत्म हो चुका है.
The National Saffron Mission hopes to turn things around.
We have had major setbacks. We are fighting it. There should be acknowledgement of our efforts. If everything goes well, 2 to 3 years, this mission would be done and dusted.
Because ultimately, the goal among farmers and the government is the same: to save Kashmiri saffron.
This is the cultural identity of Kashmir and especially the people of Pampur. I feel very proud, to be a part of the area which grows saffron. But the thing is that the production is declining. It really disheartens me.
Everything is at stake as far as this crop is concerned. We cannot let go of
Every cheesecake squirted out of this machine costs twice as much to make than it did a few years ago. Juniors pumps out, bakes, and packages 5 million cheesecakes a year. And the company's used the same recipe since the 1950s, but it's gotten a lot harder. First, there was a cream cheese.
You can't make cheesecake without cream cheese. It's impossible.
And now, inflation has caused the prices of other ingredients to soar.
I've been doing this for 33 years, and I've never seen a time like this, ever. And I can venture to say if my father was alive, he never saw a time like this.
Now that he's taken over, Alan expects a tough work ethic out of all of his employees.
The sandwich not great, Nas. Am I wrong?
Third generation owner Alan Rosen takes us behind the scenes.
It's like watching a baby being born, to me.
To see how Juniors keeps rolling out its famous cheesecakes in the face of shrinking margins. Here in New York City, Juniors is an institution, but its cheesecakes aren't actually made in the city anymore. In 2015, the company moved to this New Jersey plant.
And we took over this building because we didn't have the space to do it out of Queens.
240 workers whip up millions of cheesecakes and layer cakes here every year. Not surprisingly, every batch starts with the most important ingredient.
This year we'll probably go through about 7 million pounds of cream cheese.
Juniors partners with Kraft Heinz, the maker of Philadelphia cream cheese. Workers unwrap each of those giant blocks of cream cheese and tip them into the mixing bowl.
So far we have cream cheese, we have sugar, we have eggs. Still to come, we have some heavy cream, some vanilla, and I think that's just about it. It's kind of simple.
Workers roll these giant mixing bowls over to the assembly line. To speed up production, Alan added automatic depositors.
It gets pumped up here into here. This is going to meter out exactly the right amount.
First, workers drop a slice of vanilla cake, not graham cracker crust, into each pan.
We use cake on the bottom because this is a recipe that my grandfather created in 1950. It's a lot of work just to make the bottoms.
Slowly, the pump works its way through the entire batch of dough, plopping perfect dollops into each pan. And this guy knocks out any excess air. On this one, they're making strawberry swirl cheesecake. The swirl used to be piped by hand, but this robot took over the gig in 2017. Next, the cakes head to baking. But this step also has a unique twist.
A lot of bakeries use rack ovens where you just slide the whole rack in and slide the whole rack out. It doesn't work for our cheesecake.
His team bakes the dense cakes in a water bath.
Spreads the heat evenly. The bottoms of the cakes don't burn. They rise up like a souffle. You can see how the cakes are literally above the pan.
When they're golden brown, workers pull out the trays and pour out leftover water. Then they test the internal temperature.
They take temperatures for food safety, but I can see with my eyes.
After they've rested, the cakes aren't jiggly anymore.
We don't do jiggly, we do juniors.
Using this repurposed pizza oven, bakers can heat the pans just enough to release the set of cakes.
After the cheesecakes get decanned, we bring them into our blast freezer.
Alan keeps it at a balmy 0 degrees inside. But it's not just plain or swirl cheesecakes in the freezer. The company whips up dozens of different flavors of cheesecakes, layer cakes, and desserts. The chocolate mousse cheesecake is hit with a heaping pile of mousse, doused in a waterfall of chocolate and covered in mini chocolate chips. There's also the pumpkin layer cake cheesecake. Robots and bakers work together to ice it. Leftover cake tops are ground up to make a crumb that goes around the edges. All the finished and chilled cakes converge on the packaging line, from the pumpkin cheesecake to the 24 mini cheesecake variety pack bound for Costco. Workers place each cake in a box, slap on a label, and put it in an even bigger box. That all heads to the freezer a second time. This will all be gone within 30 days.
Right now it's enough space, but I can see maybe next year us needing even more space. This is going around the whole country.
Most of the 6-inch cheesecakes end up in one of the 12,000 supermarkets supplied by juniors.
Wegmans, Kroger, Publix, Stop and Shop, ShopRite.
Alan's grandfather, Harry Rosen, opened up the first juniors location on Election Day in 1950.
He said, if we're going to be a great restaurant in Europe, we have to have great cheesecake. Some people venture to guess that my grandfather named it after his two sons, Walter and Marvin, my father and uncle, but Jews don't really do the junior thing, so that's a little out the window.
Over the next few decades, Junior's popularity soared. It wasn't long before celebrities and politicians were digging into these iconic slices.
We started a mail order business late 80s, okay, before food by mail was a thing, and people were calling from Florida and California. Then in 1995, we met QVC. They were doing a search for America's best products state by state. We went on and I think we sold 2,400 cheesecakes in a minute.
Today, Junior's has 4 restaurants in the New York area. A quick service at LaGuardia Airport, a direct-to-consumer business, and a booming retail presence.
Oh, we're definitely the biggest cheesecake company in the world. So the top seller in our restaurants is either strawberry cheesecake or New York style
Xóm bên kia, xóm đối diện tao cơ mày. Không phải ở xóm tao nữa, bọn nó còn tao hóng.
Marvin, I'm from Germany. Brownie explosion cheesecake. I think it's like a full meal.
But keeping up with all this demand for cheesecake hasn't been easy, even for a giant like Junior's. In 2020, the pandemic shut down all of the restaurants.
I sort of joked with my mom that thankfully my dad was was deceased before COVID, because COVID would have killed him, not the disease, but the fact that his restaurants, his babies, were not doing what they were supposed to do for, in some cases, 14 or 19 months.
At the time, the company's direct-to-consumer sales actually doubled. But then came the great cream cheese shortage of 2021.
Last year we started to, we heard about it, and then all of a sudden, Jason calls me and says, "There's no cream cheese." I'm like, "What do you mean? You can't make cheese."
A cyber attack hit a cream cheese factory in Wisconsin. It wasn't Philadelphia's facility, but Kraft faced spiking demand and supply chain issues of its own. The company struggled to get a hold of starch thickeners and packaging materials. Without any cream cheese, Alan had to shut down the factory, and the team missed a couple of big orders.
And a couple of orders for us are trailers full, about 70,000 pounds, so it's a big deal. I was sweating it out pretty good.
By early 2022, Kraft had restored cream cheese supplies to Junior's.
We are one of the biggest users of cream cheese in the country.
Just in time for inflation to hit.
Every ingredient is up right now. Eggs, sugar, heavy cream, but cream cheese is definitely the highest priced ingredient that we use right now.
Alan says the price Juniors pays for cream cheese more than doubled, from $1.50 a pound to over $3.
The demand, it's based off of the butter markets, and dairy prices are just very high right now, and that's why it's affecting the price of cream cheese.
Everything is up. Labor obviously is up.
Junior sales have bounced back to pre-pandemic levels, with 110 million in expected sales this year.
But costs have escalated so dramatically that profits in the restaurant business and the wholesale business are way down.
Alan said profit margins dropped by 6%.
Oh, it's brutal. No, there's no doubt. It is the hardest time in I've been doing this for 33 years, and I've never seen a time like this, ever.
So Alan made the decision to raise prices.
Product cost has literally doubled for cheesecake. Double. We can't double our prices. That's impossible.
But Alan says higher retail prices haven't stopped customers.
I've had their cheesecake hundreds of times over many years, believe it or not, from when I was a kid.
Restaurants kind of around where we're from ordered this cheesecake to be shipped to Oklahoma City.
But even if food costs continue to rise, Alan says he'll never touch the recipe.
We had to move people around and reschedule, but we're not changing that. We'd sooner not make cake. Listen, we have a 72-year history of making cheesecake the exact way we're doing it, exactly the same way we're doing it.
So how does he plan to stay afloat? One, with those robots, and then with new products, from cheesecake shakes to updated cake flavors, like this strawberry Christmas cheesecake. And finally, Alan says diversifying helped him weather the storms of recent years. Of course, Juniors has the restaurants, but what it makes from supermarket sales is quickly catching up.
I would say it's about 50-50. The restaurants drive about half the
Giờ này nó mới
volume,
bán được
and
rồi
the
đấy.
restaurants about half the volume of the company. I think the fact that we are diversified is what saved us.
But is this business sustainable if food prices keep increasing?
You know what?
Cái
The
lanh này.
tell will be in the next
Đêm
2
với
months.
nấu
I
ăn
think
kìa.
it's sustainable because I'm a big believer in our business and how good we are at it, and that people are always going to want to choose to.
Hai đứa đấy với thằng
Slimy amount of yeast and bacteria ferments to
Phòng
make
cái lanh kìa.
and where there's fermentation, there's alcohol.
Cả cái phòng đầu tiên bên này nữa. Xong nửa đêm dậy nấu ăn.
Raw kombucha. That's
Còn nửa đêm hai đứa bên này là dậy chửi nhau.
Having a mini cleanse before you could actually end up intoxicated.
You have to drink 10
Đâu,
bottles.
nhưng mình có 3
But
cái
US
cạch
law
đâu.
requires
Là
that
đi ăn
it
đâu.
never go over 0.5% for kombucha to be sold as a soft drink. If they do go over, producers could face
Nhưng
tax
cũng chả đi học,
penalties
cả
for
biết đi học
risk
không?
getting their bottles pulled from shelves.
Đấy
This
toàn đọc học.
happened before. So producers have two choices: get an alcohol license to ferment kombucha naturally, or
Suốt ngày đi học
redo
học
the
luôn.
entire product so it doesn't create as much alcohol, which is what GT Dave, kombucha's first billionaire, did. Dealing with the boozy byproduct is expensive and complicated, and some say may eliminate what makes kombucha a healthy drink. This congressman is trying to pass an act that would raise the legal limit of alcohol for just kombucha to 1.25%. But can it pass? We went to Oregon for a deeper look at how one brewer works within these regulations to produce over 30 million bottles a year. Here at Brew Doctor in Portland, Oregon, the kombucha starts with 3 main ingredients: water, tea, and sugar. It's the same 3 ingredients that have made up the drink since its likely creation, in China, thousands of years ago. In Japan, it was made with seaweed, hence its name, kombu cha. These days, brewers start the tea with botanicals, like rose, mint, and lavender.
It's fun with these botanicals to think about the giant fields they come from.
A single batch of kombucha needs about 85 pounds of tea to get going. That'll make 66,000 bottles.
In here, what we do is we bring in hot water.
Then they add sugar.
So essentially what we're doing here is making a big pot of sweet tea that will then get fermented into kombucha.
It takes around 40 minutes. Then it's pumped through this waterfall filter.
And all the organic material comes out. And so we partner with our local municipalities to compost.
To ready the vat for the next batch of tea, this guy crawls in to clean it out. And that already brewed sweet tea heads to tanks in the fermentation room, where the tea first starts to produce alcohol. At 500,000 gallons total, all the liquid in here would almost fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool. The room is kept at a steamy 82 degrees Fahrenheit. and it smells kind of sour.
And that seems to be where our kombucha fermentation is happiest. So we add the sweet tea into the tank where there's already a SCOBY.
A SCOBY is a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. Essentially, it's a living organism that kickstarts the fermentation
Cửa này vẫn
process.
mở mà,
As
cửa
the
bên
kombucha is
trong
fermenting, the SCOBY forms in layers. Eventually, you'll just have layer upon layer upon layer upon layer.
It's this guy's job to pop CO2 bubbles that form at the top of the tank. The SCOBY's bacteria eats up the sugar and creates carbon dioxide, which makes kombucha bubbly, and alcohol. As long as it has sugar to feed on, a SCOBY can grow to epic proportions.
If this tank were as wide as a swimming pool, it would create a SCOBY the width of a swimming pool. This batch has been fermenting for just over 3 weeks.
At this point, Brew Doctor's kombucha has about 3% alcohol by volume. Compare that to a light beer, which sits at 4.2 ABV.
Anywhere in the organization, data is starting to power decision making.
The access to real-time data about the people that we're serving, it allows us to act in more real time to meet their needs.
Dude, it's so good with alcohol in it. Like, no. Cheers.
Every fermented food, from yogurt to kimchi, has trace amounts of alcohol.
You can't feed yeast sugar and not create ethanol. That's natural.
Brew Doctor pays annually for a distillery license. But because Brew Doctor sells its kombucha as a soft drink, the team has to remove most of the natural alcohol, bringing it from 3% to under the legal limit of 0.5%. They use this machine, common in the wine industry. This column is heated slowly at low temperatures. Cones spin inside to spread out the liquid. A cool vapor evaporates, carrying the small alcohol molecules with it.
It's a very elegant, mechanical way of taking ethanol out of a liquid without affecting the nature of the liquid.
That fancy machine costs Matt $1 million.
But now we're responsibly selling a non-alcoholic product to our consumers.
Testing is also required by law, but it's another complicated and expensive step in the process. This alcohol testing machine can cost up to $40,000. Each bottle gets a label warning of the trace amounts of alcohol. At this point, the alcohol is well under the 0.5% limit. Next, it's packed and shipped. But kombucha will continue fermenting once it leaves here. And if it's stored improperly at a grocery store,
alcohol that's naturally present through the fermentation will continue to increase.
If you drink spoiled milk, is that something you take up with the producers? Is it something you take up with the store? So there's a couple of questions there in terms of who really is liable at that point.
The current law says producers are to blame if ABV ever goes over 0.5% before it winds up in a customer's fridge, which is exactly what happened in 2010. At the time, there weren't a lot of eyes on the fledgling kombucha industry. But then a bottle of kombucha in a Maine Whole Foods started bubbling. State authorities tested it for alcohol and found it to be 2.5% ABV, way above the legal limit. It still wasn't enough to get an adult buzzed, but that bubbling bottle upended the industry.
Everybody kind of found out about alcohol in kombucha.
Whole Foods dropped all kombucha from their shelves.
Virtually every kombucha maker in the entire country was asked to temporarily cease production.
Kombucha was going up, it got pulled off the shelf, it dropped like this, and it just created this sort of wound that we've been trying to heal from ever since.
Brands scrambled to get their kombucha under compliance.
Some brands just didn't come back.
Honest Tea and Vi brands stopped producing kombucha altogether.
It was close to catastrophic. Being off the shelf for 3 months can almost kill any brand.
Others, like Brew Doctor, dropped a lot of money on alcohol removal machines. Others use kombucha from concentrate and dilute it with water or juice.
Some brands chose to pasteurize.
But some argue removing the alcohol can also erase some of the drink's health benefits.
They would also remove the organic acids and beneficial microorganisms that make kombucha probiotic.
To keep his drink raw but still compliant,
we took the original recipe and we got it licensed as an alcohol beverage.
Then GT created a whole new recipe.
We modified the temperature that we fermented the kombucha, the length of time that we fermented the kombucha.
So the alcohol content was lower. The 0.5% ABV rule is from a Prohibition-era tax code.
So what we're dealing with is an antiquated law that isn't based in the laws of nature.
If a product is at 0.4 versus 0.6, it's not the difference between you getting drunk or intoxicated. It's really just a legal technicality.
The companies that made it work, despite the regulations, have thrived in an industry that has bounced back. GT became kombucha's first billionaire.
We have over 50% of the market share.
But producers and government leaders are pushing back on 0.5%. In 2021, Congressman Earl Blumenauer from Oregon introduced the Kombucha Act to Congress. Its goal? To increase the alcohol limit for only kombucha to 1.25%.
The natural process, where you're simply not able to regiment it in a way that keeps under that 0.5%.
This new limit is not unheard of. Canada's kombucha is allowed to contain 1.1% alcohol, and Australia's 1.15%.
They're forced to make their product according to the tax code, not what their customers want to drink.
It would also allow kombucha to be closer to its original form, ethanol and all.
They have to decide if they want to make kombucha the way it's always been made, for a couple thousand years, and have an alcohol content, or if they're going to use a solution like ours where they can get the alcohol out.
The act would also allow more wiggle room for kombucha to naturally keep fermenting on store shelves.
I anticipate that the industry is going to explode once the act passes.
But will the Kombucha Act pass? Well, the House denied it once before. And now that Matt already has his distillery license, even he is on the fence.
I don't see that happening. There's a lot of instances where that's irresponsible to serve something with that alcohol content. Don't want my kids drinking something that's 1.5% alcohol.
I'm really confident that we're going to see it pass. People write laws. People get laws changed.
What I don't want, which could happen if things don't change, is these industries shut down. And all you have is a seltzer that says kombucha, which would not be good for anyone.
Americans are buying more plants than ever before. In 2020, sales for potted foliage plants were up 23%. And a year later, the plant growing industry was worth $16 billion. What's behind the growing interest in things that grow? Thousands of social media influencers sharing their collections and touting the health benefits of houseplants. Influencers like Summer.
I personally bought that plant for $39, which was pretty expensive at the time. Now you get a small plant like this for hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
But nearly half of all the houseplants grown in the U.S. die at some point along the supply chain.
I've gone to many big box stores, and those plants are in sad condition.
These are living products, after all.
We can't just flick a switch. We're not making soda pop bottles. We're not producing toilet paper.
And new plant parents make terrible caretakers. They kill another half of the plants they take home, according to one study. So as demand increases, so does the amount of waste the houseplant industry creates.
It'd be as much as 7 or 8 years to produce a plant.
Think about all of the input that had to go into that plant and to just have it thrown out the door.
So why do so many plants die in the supply chain? And what are growers and plant influencers doing about it? We went to one of America's largest farms to find out. Costa Farm, here in Miami, produces 1.6 million plants every week. The company supplies giant retailers like Home Depot, Walmart, IKEA, and Whole Foods. This is Mike. He's the production manager.
We're in a soil processing plant. This is the beginning of the growing cycle.
Mike makes a living keeping plants healthy.
That's the main goal. Keep it alive.
But at this scale, that's not always easy. Costa has to maintain the perfect ratio of light, water, temperature, and food.
We can only deal with the natural factors.
Every grower will lose some plants along the way. That's what the industry calls shrinkage. But Costa has taken steps to minimize it. It all starts with this potting mix. Costa uses coconut core, which comes from the fibrous middle part of the fruit. This is a more sustainable alternative than peat moss, which releases carbon dioxide when harvested and takes a long time to go back.
We're just talking about millimeters or fractions of millimeters of growth a year.
After the coconut core arrives at Costa, these machines rehydrate it. It's then ground and mixed with wood fibers. This machine drops the soil mixture and fertilizer into pots. Workers gently flatten the soil by hand to get an even spread. Costa says this recipe gives plants the best chance of survival until they reach store shelves. Next, the pots head over to the production area to get their young plants. These are cuttings, taken from the stems of more mature plants. These workers place the cuttings into pots. They're fragile, so they have to move fast.
La idea es que la planta no sufra estrés. Mientras más rápido sea el proceso, es mejor. Tenemos menos pérdida en el campo.
During this process, growers nationally lose an average of 20% of their plants, although Costa says it loses half that. Another reason plants die? Disease and pests. The biggest concern are spider mites and mealybugs.
They're sucking the juices out of it. The leaf is not able to get the proper nutrition.
Workers inspect every plant. If they spot any spider mites, they fire up this fancy gun, which is actually a repurposed leaf blower. The gun that comes out is full of bigger, predatory mites.
Lo que vamos a hacer ahora es soltar estos depredadores, que son un insecto beneficioso para nuestras plantas.
Predatory mites don't hurt the plants or people, but instead feed on the dangerous spider mites. They're also a safer alternative to pesticides. Afterwards, this giant sprinkler moves through to water them.
This plant now will spend its life cycle growing here.
Costa then hardens off some of its plants to avoid any more shrinkage. That means towards the end of the growth cycle, growers starve the plants of humidity, light, and water. The goal? To mimic conditions indoors.
And then that plant will toughen up, and we'll feel like we have more of a green thumb because we'll have been able to care for that plant better.
The plants then get one more inspection. One worker places plants in the belt, another inspects the quality, removing any dead leaves. If they notice any wilting, the plants will be removed, and Costa will try and revive them. But on average, another 10% of plants perish during production in the US. Costa trucks its plants to retailers all over North America. Some are sold online. But the shrinkage continues in the store. It's estimated about 10% of plants don't make it out.
Big box stores, they don't tend to have horticulturists on staff. They just have people that may or may not water things.
I don't know about you, but I've gone to many big box stores, and those plants are in sad condition.
Think wilted or yellowing leaves or rotted roots.
Go when we look at the tomatoes and the bananas and everything, we look for bruises. Is it really ripe enough? And so we need to look at plants even more that way.
But the biggest plant murderers are consumers.
You haven't grown a plant unless you killed it 3 times.
One survey found new gardeners kill 70% of their plants. Even experienced ones kill about 1/3 of what they grow.
That's where we make our money, but hey, let's not say that, right? So folks, when they get plants, they tend to love them so much, they may over care for them, and they may not be so successful.
So out of 10 houseplants, only 3 will survive a significant amount of time in a customer's home. When everyone was stuck inside during the pandemic, more people turned to plants for their health benefits. And there's actually science to back that up. Researchers found that having plants in hospitals can speed up recovery time for patients, reduce their anxiety levels, and elevate their moods.
The presence of plants does things like decrease blood pressure, decrease heart rate, increase endorphins, all the things that make you feel better.
Plus, they're pretty. Exotic plants went viral on social media. Today on TikTok, there are over 4 billion views on videos with the hashtag #PlantTikTok. Social media influencers like Summer have made a living off sharing their collections and plant care tips.
You can make something look really good with photography and with lighting, and people all of a sudden may feel the need to have that plant.
And it's driving sales at just unprecedented levels.
And that's driven up prices.
We saw some people reselling the plants on social media for like $1,500 each.
The demand has put a squeeze on producers like Costa.
We haven't. We have also grown our portfolio to include different varieties of plants.
But starting a new line of plants, like this aglaonema, could take up to 8 years. And trends change fast. Through the hardening process, pest control, and quality checks, growers like Costa are working to minimize shrinkage. Costa says its shrinkage is half the national average. But as consumers buy more, there's a lot of waste, from the lost plants to the growing number of plastic pots, heat, water, and space across the supply chain.
You wouldn't typically think that houseplants is an extractive industry. But in many cases, it actually is an extractive industry.
But there are ways consumers and producers can be more green. Consumers can get clippings from friends and learn how to take care of the plants they've already purchased.
How to cut something, we have to do the same with the plants. We have to figure out what exactly it is that they need. So we learn not to overwater plants. Most of the time you don't need a lot of fertilizer.
Linda would like to see all growers swap peat moss for renewable potting mixtures, like the coconut coir Costa uses.
They can always compost the plants and recycle the pots.
But if consumers are having a hard time keeping plants alive, they should ask one simple question.
Do you really need that plant?
Ghana is the world's second biggest producer of cocoa, but the country only earns about 2% of the $100 billion industry. Cocoa growers here export most of their cocoa beans to Europe and North America, where they're turned into chocolate.
We are shipping out the cocoa in its raw state. And if you look at the value chain of cocoa, money is made in the finished product.
While big chocolate companies rake in billions a year, many cocoa farmers live in poverty, earning just $2 a day. And Ghanaian entrepreneurs like Michael have struggled to open chocolate factories in their home country.
We are trying to decolonize chocolate. This time around, we are saying that it can be done right here in Ghana.
Now, the government is funding efforts to grow a domestic chocolate industry. But can Ghana's entrepreneurs get a bigger share of the profits? We visit a cocoa farm and processing plant to find out. Ghana, together with Ivory Coast, grows over 60% of the world's cocoa. The countries sell to all the big chocolate companies, from Hershey's to Mars to Nestle, which process the beans abroad in mostly Europe and North America.
Pacho, your friend Joseph Bata, I'm a cocoa farming for 18 years ago.
Joseph grows 11 acres of cocoa, and it isn't easy. Farmers battle more extreme weather due to climate change, plant disease, and fatigued land. Every October, he and his family begin harvesting the yellow pods. It takes just 4 days. Joseph collects the pods and takes them to the breaking ground. Here, workers crack them open and remove the beans by hand. Joseph uses the leftover pods as compost under his trees. Joseph then dries the beans for another week. In total, he packs 75 bags of beans a year. His income is about $27 a day. It's a high wage for a Ghanaian farmer, because Joseph grows organic cocoa without pesticides. But many farmers in Ghana live at or below the poverty line, earning less than $2 a day. That's because the majority of farms are small and aren't certified organic, according to Christy, a cocoa scholar nicknamed the Doc of Chalk.
We're talking about really small plots, and this is part of the reason why cocoa farmers are so poor.
But that's not the only reason farmers make so little.
Cocoa's being farmed in Ghana for over 100 years. There are many parts of the country where the land is really fatigued now, and the trees are old.
In the 15th and 16th centuries, Portugal and Spain monopolized cocoa, controlling production and trade from their colonies in Latin America and the Gulf of Guinea. Europe's elite were the biggest customers. The crop arrived in what's now Ghana in 1876. Around the same time, the British declared the southern region a colony and began invading north. Locals own and ran all the small farms, but the raw product was exclusively exported to Europe.
A lot of what we know today as contemporary chocolate really grew out of this trading relationship between Ghana and Britain, including the flavor of chocolate itself.
Although Ghana gained its independence in 1957, its one-way cocoa trade with Europe still exists today. And it's kept farmers at the beginning of the supply chain in poverty for generations. To help raise farmer wages, Ghana and its neighbor Ivory Coast teamed up in 2019.
The two largest cocoa producing countries in the world, and so when they get together on something, everyone has to pay attention.
They introduced the fixed price system, which set a price floor for cocoa. In 2020, Ghana set the price floor at $2,600 a metric ton. That included a $400 premium added to every ton of cocoa.
And this value goes directly to the farmers.
The premium is called the Living Income Differential, or LID. It was the first of its kind in the chocolate industry, and it meant farmers took home nearly 30% more money than the year before. At first, big chocolate companies agreed to pay the LID.
You can't really not buy Ghanaian and Ivorian cocoa, so the big buyers really had no choice.
The LID's markup may seem like a lot, but the millions it's raised to combat farmer poverty is a fraction of big chocolate makers' sales. But soon after it launched, reports surfaced accusing Hershey's of buying cocoa without paying the premium.
It's sad to note that these companies who have the resources may not want to abide by this simple appeal.
In an email to Business Insider, the company said Hershey supports and is fully participating in the Living Income Differential. When the corporations do pay, the LID has helped farmers.
Now, Nguoi is pushing farmers to even increase their yield. That's how come last year we were able to hit a record 1.2 million tons of beans.
After farmers dry the beans, they're bagged up. About 70% of these beans will be sent overseas. Ghana processes only 30% of its cocoa beans domestically. But in 2020, at a press conference in Switzerland, the president announced he wanted to change that.
We intend to process more and more of our cocoa in our country with the aim of producing more chocolate ourselves.
And he said it right in front of the top commerce ministers of Switzerland, one of Ghana's biggest customers.
That statement in Switzerland caused a lot of controversy. I must say, we clearly mentioned our intentions to put in efforts to also add value within Ghana.
To support cocoa processing inside Ghana, the government created a free zone outside Accra. Any factory operating inside gets a tax break. Lloyd Ashley runs niche cocoa industry in the free zone.
In the free zone enclave, you are getting 10 years free duty on your imported parts for equipment. So it gives you the opportunity to also increase capacity.
Niche has become Ghana's second largest cocoa manufacturer. The company says it processes 10% of the country's cocoa, and Niche processes 2 tons of it an hour. The cocoa beans arrive here from farms all over rural Ghana. Workers stack the bags high, then cut them open one by one. The beans funnel into this grate on the floor. And the rest of the process is controlled digitally, from roasting the beans to grinding them into cocoa mass. That's then sent to get mixed with milk and sugar.
And from there, it comes here for a tempering process, a cooling process, and then a packaging process.
Niche has been pretty successful, but for small companies outside the free zone, it hasn't been as easy to get up and running.
Hello, everything okay?
Michael runs Farah Freak, a cocoa maker that opened in Amanasi to be closer to cocoa farmers. But since it's outside the free zone, it didn't get the tax breaks. Farah Freak also had trouble buying cocoa beans.
As shocking as that may sound, it's really hard in Ghana to procure cocoa beans.
Another hurdle keeping Ghana's chocolate industry from taking off?
Well, it's very hard to make chocolate in Ghana.
For one, there's no dairy industry.
Anybody producing chocolate in Ghana is definitely importing large volumes of milk from either Europe or other continents.
Chocolate makers also have to import sugar, mostly from Brazil. And finally, it's hot in Ghana.
Chocolate, by its nature, is very sensitive to temperature. Any rise in temperature may cause the chocolate to melt.
There's not the kind of cold chain that you need to distribute chocolate effectively within Ghana or much of West Africa.
And building out that cold chain has been expensive.
We have used insulated building materials for some sections of our building. Some sections of the building is completely insulated roofing sheet.
Also, Ghana's power grid is sometimes unreliable.
Electricity, for example, is another issue here. Although there's power, it's never stable.
Farah Freak's top sellers are finished chocolate bars. Inside temperature-controlled rooms, this machine pumps the chocolate into molds.
So our installation capacity is 10,000 bars of chocolate every hour.
That's a fraction of what a Hershey's or Mars factory can do. This machine wraps the chocolate bars. With 68 workers, the company's scaling up to produce 15 million bars a year.
The practice has always been that the raw materials are sent to Europe for processing, but this time around we are saying that it can be done right here in Ghana.
Say a process cocoa no ewo Ghana ha. Ye be nyamu sika a ebe ba ban no nsem. Nti ye be ma ya kwan be ye let ye electricity nsem be ye hospital and schools.
But Christy says the country still has a long way to go.
Definitely no silver bullet, for sure. When you have a whole system like colonialism, it doesn't shift quickly.
While there are 5 times more processing facilities in Ghana today than a decade ago, most only process cocoa into intermediate products like
cocoa butter, cocoa mass, cocoa liquor, cocoa powder, not to chocolate.
96% of Niche's business are these intermediate products. Most of the finished bars are still made abroad.
We need to increase the export of cocoa in a semi-finished and also in a finished state.
Lloyd wants to create demand for